Welcome to the CJ Murray Podcast. This is an exploration of music and growth on an intellectual, philosophical, and emotional basis. I'm excited to welcome today Olivia Wentworth. We actually met in college when I heard her perform a song she wrote called The Love of Christ, and I hunted her down that day and said, I would love to produce that for you. And it's on Spotify under her name. Please check it out. Today's conversation was such a blessing. We talked about contentment, songwriting, what it's like to be hobbyist musicians and that it's okay. But the best part is just learning how to pray. How do we pray for good specifics on where we want to go with music? What we want to do is just giving it to God and letting Him take care of the rest. Thank you so much for listening, guys. This is such an opportunity. I'm glad to be able to do this. Please enjoy this conversation with Olivia Wentworth. How have you been? So you've been nursing, right?
Yeah, okay. So I actually haven't been nursing. So
Okay.
Guthrie and I got married a year and a half ago. And so I stopped doing nursing after
Yeah.
that. So I was doing nursing for 2 years when I left PCC and I stopped. COVID kind of burnt me out, so I just wanted to take a break. And so I've been helping Guthrie with window washing. He has a window washing business that he's been doing for like 16 years. So
Mm.
so that keeps me honestly pretty busy between paperwork and other secretary stuff like
Mm.
contacting customers and working up estimates and yeah, so it definitely stays pretty busy.
So
So
you're like in the accounting administration / sometimes working type of thing.
yeah. So yeah, in the wintertime, it slows down. We do residential and commercial windows. So houses we only do in the summertime when it's warm. And then we do commercial year round just because it gets really cold
Mm.
where I live. So it's not really fun doing really dirty windows in the middle of
Yeah,
winter.
that makes sense. So then tell me, in this life transition from going from one career field to this, what has music meant to you?
Okay. Um I guess I would say music has actually stayed kind of consistent.
Okay.
It's always kind of been just kind of that thing in the background that I work on when I have time. And thankfully, now with this career change, I've had a lot more time.
Mm.
Uh, well, I guess I've had a lot more opportunity, I guess, not necessarily more time, but I just felt like I definitely needed to leave nursing because it was getting very stressful. And so now I have kind of the mental headspace to write music where I didn't really have that before. So just kind of a lesser stress. Um, yeah, a lot less stress in window washing. So that
Mm.
leads to a more mental space to be able to write songs and stuff.
So like I follow your Instagram and I follow your YouTube. When you sit down and you pull out a guitar and you want to write a song, like where do you typically get ideas? Where do you pull inspiration from? What's kind of like a general process?
Yeah. So another impromptu question,
No, you're
but
good.
so I guess I would say I I'm still definitely a hobbyist musician and I'm not necessarily a career musician. So I would say when I feel really inspired to write a song is when I write a song. And I realized that if I wanted to take more of a step into the kind of professional realm of music, which I am interested in doing that.
Mm.
It seems like from what I've heard, just listening to more well-known artists, that they kind of have to write music even in a dry season. That'd be really hard for me because at this point, I really only write songs when I feel very inspired by something that I hear. For example, specifically like on the radio, we have a Christian radio station in our area, and I'll listen to that. And sometimes there's a really good sermon on that's like, wow, I really need to write a song off of that. Um, yeah, it's not usually based on like a I guess I should say not recently. It hasn't been based off of sermons that I hear for some reason, but that's just a recent thing. That's not necessarily a across the board.
Mm.
And then in terms of my process, I know some people say they do music first and then lyrics. I tend to be lyrics first and then music. Usually 75% of the time, that's the way I operate. Every once in a while, I'll be messing around on the guitar and I'll come up with something that I really like the sound of. And then I'm like, okay, I really need to, come up with lyrics for this one because it sounds really good. So then that'll be the opposite. But usually I have something that's really inspired me, something that's um, usually deeply affected me personally. And then I just want to write about it. And so I kind of word vomit that out. And then I kind of go through and I edit it and make it into something that sounds a little less word vomity. And I like to make it rhyme most of the time. So that's kind of my general process.
Mm. Something that I think I've come to appreciate is the beauty of being a hobbyist because I've kind of, you do research on the professional realm and you realize the type of process that they go through. And someone could even look at you and say, oh man, that sounds nice. That'd be really nice if I could just have that space or that, I guess, opportunity to word vomit and not overthink it. That's
Mhm.
something that sometimes I know I have to take a step back and think, man, it's pretty sweet. There's no one over your shoulder. There's not like a mass of people that are gonna be waiting for it. But yeah, I just
Yeah.
find that beautiful.
Yeah. It is really nice right now. And yeah, and it sounds like maybe you're in the same place too, where you can kind of take a step back and you don't have that pressure. So that is definitely a nice place to be.
Yeah. Something that I've really been trying to work through. Megan and I got married 6 months ago, so we're in that newlywed transition, figuring out schedules. She's still in school right now, and figuring out schedules. Right now, we figured this out where she's a night owl, I'm a morning person, and we're starting to just accept it. And so I'll wake up a little earlier, and there's like a short block in the morning where that's just my time, where I know I can wake up, spend some time in prayer, work on music. And if it's 20 minutes, 30 minutes, an hour, that's that block. And something that I'm trying to make a discipline out of, I'm working on mainly one song right now, but I'll work on a block in the morning and I'll export the audio. And then I'll toy with ideas throughout the day, whether lyrically or musically, but I'll write it down. So when I show up the next day, I have notes. And so it kind of streamlines that short block I know I have. And then if I happen to get time elsewhere in the day, that's great. But I think that's what's ugh, I can't English. That's what I've been doing the past few weeks. I know that's really worked for me. And it's kind of preserved the hobbyist mentality. But I think the hobbyist is the time where we figure out, okay, how do I start to add in some disciplines or something to even illustrate that? I thought it was really interesting. I saw a reel the other day where this guy said, I had a nightmare the other night where I couldn't sing anymore. I lost my voice. Not as in I medically lost my voice, I couldn't make any sound, but I just lost the ability to sing because I hadn't sung. And when I woke up, I realized I had to do something about it, or else I probably wouldn't be able to sing. So it's that idea of embracing the consistency of just use it. Just use the ability to write songs. Just use the ability to create something, to open up the DAW and even lay down one track, just forward motion. Right.
Mhm.
So,
Right.
and
Yeah,
part
that's
of
really
why I'd really like to hand that to you is because, I follow you, and whenever you post snippets of songs or something that you're working on, I just think it's really good. And it's like, oh yeah, I could totally see that being a full release or something that could get more tracks to it. So then further question, what to you is the appeal of the professional realm? Like if you were to fast forward 5 years and you were involved in something bigger or your own skill set was doing something bigger, like what's the appeal for you?
yeah. Um, I guess a couple things jump into my head right away. One is just the ability that I would hope to have in 5 years of my skill level, like playing guitar, um, and vocals. I hope that those would be better in 5 years, so doing that professionally,
Mm,
um, you naturally have to improve because you're performing and you're practicing and you're putting in a lot of time.
mm,
Um, and so just that would be something that would be cool, just to kind of naturally improve. And then uh, the second thing would be to have that platform, uh, where you're able to share. Basically, when I write my music, as I said before, it comes from something that's deeply personal, and I write it really to kind of help other people that maybe have gone through something similar to that song that I'm writing. And so, hopefully, again, uh, as a if you have a more professional platform, you would have a bigger platform, and so theoretically, your songs that you write would be able to help more people.
mm.
So yeah,
Yeah. I think gold standard to springboard off of that is how interesting would it be if someone came up to you didn't know and said, "Oh wow, I was so encouraged by XYZ and you didn't even know them." That to me is like when you know you've reached that platform that's beyond you, as opposed to posting for family or friends or like loosely meeting people, you know. No, I would definitely agree to that.
yeah, I've never had that happen, but that would be cool to have happen someday. Yeah, and also I guess that kind of tying into that, what you're saying about some random person coming up to you, I will say that is also something nice about being kind of low key right now, where really the only people that know you are, your friends and family. And sometimes even my friends and family don't know that I write music still. So it's really, really low
Mm,
key. And the whole side of fame is just, I don't know if that's kind of what I'm going for, just
mm,
because there's so many issues that come with being well known, and it
mm,
totally changes your lifestyle. You can't go uh, outside. For example, if you're somebody super well known like Taylor Swift, I mean, you literally can't walk out your front door without 20 people following you with cameras.
mm.
And I'm not saying like, oh, I want to be that person someday, but I guess just kind of enjoying where I am right now and doing what I'm doing right now. And if God opens doors, that's great. And if He doesn't, like, I'm okay with being this kind of bottom of the totem pole, regular old Joe person that nobody knows,
Mm.
because there's benefits that go with that too.
Yeah. Something I've noticed with a lot of really well-known people, especially early in their careers, and there's obviously worlds of exceptions, but a lot of them are single. I mean, like what it took to get to where they got to, you don't see many photos of them with their spouse.
Right.
So that's something where, yeah, like not being well known, you get to enjoy that newlywed calm. Oh, Megan's in art school, so I still crazy. Art
Yeah.
school is just insane, the time that it takes, but you still get to do it together and you have that breathing room, that space to just be together. And I know especially for musicians, all the traveling that goes into it. And I can imagine if you're traveling for gigs, tour, promotion, collaboration, even like they're not short trips typically. And so I don't know. I kind of look at the season where, yeah, we have normal jobs or doing what we're doing. And it's a blessing to not have to balance that many complicated things like you're saying.
Yeah, definitely appreciate that. Yeah, especially with Guthrie and I being newly married, a year and a half into marriage.
Congratulations.
Yeah, thank you. You too. Um, it's just uh, trying to figure out the priorities of life, um, and that's I can take a while to do. I would say after being married a year and a half, I still feel like I really don't have everything figured out yet. So yeah, it's definitely nice to not have a traveling musician career on top
Mm,
of being newly married.
mm,
I think that would be kind of a recipe for disaster. It'd be really hard to do that.
yeah. There just seems more freedom when it's not attached to a career. I mean, you're limited in many ways, but I don't know. I enjoy it. So then, okay, I want to workshop something with you. I think it'd be a really interesting discussion for the seasons of life that we're both in. Because the more we're talking, it's like, yeah, I can relate. Man, like we are in the same boat here. Uh, I want to workshop prayer and like specifics to pray about, right? Like learning instruments. The past few weeks I've been back in this mode of having a prayer app and listing things specifically. And there's an app called Prayer Mate. It's cool because you can have like hundreds of prayers in there, but it rotates on a cycle. So if you only have time to pray for like 10, 15 things, it'll cycle through just that much. And then it'll reach other things. But when it comes to us growing in music, career potentially on the horizon, working towards it, what's unique things that we could maybe pray about that not a lot of people would think of?
Hmm. Um, Great question. I guess again, off the top of my head, I would say just that kind of contentment with being where you are, and again, I'm kind of repeating myself here, but being okay with not being super well known, and just really making an impact where you're planted.
Mm,
So right now, if the only people that listen to my music are like my parents and my in-laws and it's helping them, then that's
mm,
great. And I guess praying that the music um, that I do write is impactful where where I am right now.
mm,
And then yeah, and then also just the contentment with that, and
mm,
um not losing sight of eternity, and like when we die, and hopefully we don't die in the next couple years when we're like 80, 90 years old when we pass away. It doesn't matter that we've become as famous as Taylor Swift. I'm saying that name just because I feel like everybody knows who she is. So it doesn't really matter. And what matters is like just weighing things, I guess, in light of eternity, and really keeping that in perspective. I'm going to kind of go off on a tiny, hopefully tiny rabbit trail here, but I've been trying to reprioritize my time. So I'm not spending as much time with my music on Instagram,
mm,
just because it seems like there's this trend going on with independent artists where they really put a lot of effort into social media. And I'm not saying that social media is bad. I think it is good, but I almost feel like the market is kind of getting flooded with independent artists on social media. And also me working on, this is my personal opinion is when I spend like 2 hours working on editing a video versus 2 hours developing my guitar skill. I think for me, working that 2 hours into my guitar time is going to be of more value to me than 2 hours into editing my video, because I'm not really that good at editing videos. So yeah, I guess to tie that back in, just that contentment of, yeah, just being okay with being local and having more of a grassroots approach to music instead of kind of impersonal social media. And I realize that we live in the day of technology and social media, and I'm on Instagram and I do post to Instagram, but I guess just kind of changing my focus so that it's less on social media, less on Instagram, and more on developing my skill and more on ministering to people that are right around me locally. So, one, I guess, contentment for where you are. Two would be an impact of where you are, I guess, to sum it up.
Contentment in where you are and an impact in where you are. My mind framed it in an interesting way, taking the approach of love, where if you just develop a deeper love, number one, of God, but a deeper love of music and a deeper love of people. Because to your point, if only my parents or only my in-laws hear this song, if it helps them and they're blessed, it's worth it. Now, we know the work that can go into a song. And so when you said that, my mind went to, man, I would have to really love somebody to put in 50 hours of work. And maybe they're blessed for a total of 5 minutes, right? And that's something that, man, it would take a real level of contentment in God for just to know spiritually, man, God wanted me to do this and I did it. And you get to see the fruit of that. One thing just about being a hobbyist versus being a professional is a lot of times you go professional and there's a lot of delegation and there's a lot of pros to that. Like you can delegate editing to somebody. A lot of people, I don't know the money they throw around. I really don't. But a lot of musicians, like they'll pay somebody where, hey, you edit the videos, turn these things into reels. I'm just gonna give that to you. You take care of that. It's like, man, that'd be nice. But again, I don't know the money they're throwing into that. And right now, for me, I just do it all. But there's control and there's freedom to know exactly what's happening to it. I'm getting lost here. You'd have to love someone a lot
Yeah.
to put the work into a song and love the work, love the music, where even if it doesn't go very far, you're proud of what you made and you enjoy the process. Mm, yeah. No, those are awesome requests. I'm trying to see if I can take this further. Praying for contentment, for the impact on people around us.
I guess I should be honest here and add another thing of like of being content where you are, but also something that I have been praying for recently is the contentment, but also like opportunities.
Mm,
So if there are, if it is God's will, um, basically that those doors would be opened.
mm,
So if they're not opened, prayers for contentment where where God's put you, but also I don't think it's wrong to pray for doors to open either
mm,
for your career to advance.
mm,
And then if it doesn't, it doesn't, and that's okay. But if it does, that's awesome.
mm. I feel like there's so many behind the scenes prayers that can go into that. For instance, praying that my marriage is in a good spot so that if an opportunity opens, my marriage can handle it.
Hmm.
Because I know me, I'm a yes person. It's so hard to say no when someone says, "I have this great opportunity. I would love for you to help." And to the point where it's like you used to do stuff for free, And you just you can't do that anymore. It's like I would love to be a ministry, but I'm feeding a family now, make it worth my time.
Mm.
It's hard. Um,
Yep. I
right. Praying that that your marriage is in a good place so that you can handle it, and praying for current projects. Lord, help me to finish this. And then
Mhm.
if there's something after this, make the door clear.
Mhm.
Lord, don't let me take on more than I can handle time wise. Because something I'm realizing is I work better on more sleep.
Oh yeah.
Or or not only that, but when you still have the time to have good conversations with your spouse. I mean, sometimes it can be so easy to get dragged into a music project and you lose sight of the fact you haven't had a good sit down for a couple days. And um, yeah, so I think for me right now, it's learning to pray, Lord, give me the discipline to know when to restrain. It's like during dry seasons, give me the discipline to walk forward. And during the seasons when I'm so tempted to sprint for long seasons, give me the grace to know when to back off, to know how do I slow down so that I'm inclusive of the people around me. I mean, it goes back to exactly what you were saying, contentment and wanting to bless the people around us. And if we lose sight of the people for the music, it can kind of shoot you the foot. But yeah, if you have a strong marriage, there's a way to communicate of like, okay, for the next 2 days, this is probably what I'm going to need. But after that, I'm pretty sure I can come back to where we've been. That's just some thoughts.
No,
Mm.
that's really, really good. And that is something that has been on the forefront of my mind recently of like why am I writing music in the first place? Like is it just for the sake of writing music? I do like
Mm.
writing music just for the sake of writing music, but it's also like in light of eternity, keeping that in mind of um yeah, it's really all about love. And like if I prioritize music above people, then it's kind of defeating my whole purpose in writing. Like my whole purpose in writing is to help other people and encourage them and refresh them. And um yeah, it would just kind of be silly to like prioritize music above people at that point because yeah, it's just
Mm.
defeating the purpose.
Yeah.
So
Now, the flip side of the coin would be praying about the skills you're developing, like learning guitar, where the better you are at guitar and you write a song around a certain level of skill, so to speak, then when you are performing, when you are with people, when you are creating, collaborating, or showing it to a friend, it actually frees up your mind to focus on them. Because there's
mm,
nothing more embarrassing than trying to do something and you can't. And friends and family, they're so accepting. We know that. But as a musician, we know there's a standard that is good to meet, to do the song justice, to do the message justice. And so that's where I don't know, like that's a good specific to pray too, is Lord, help me build up the skills to where you want them to be so that I can serve people the way you want me to serve them. So ultimately people can see you and not me. And it's a hard tandem. Whenever I think about these things, my mind kind of reverts back to this idea that this is a long journey because growth takes time. And I don't know, there's so many people that are so good, but they were good by the age of 16. Like, no, they were great by the age of 16, and now we're kind of playing catch up. But what I'm so grateful is God looks at them completely differently. Like someone who's the best musician, but they're not where they should be with God. It's not what it's cracked up to be. It's not like, oh, they get to do this and I don't. When in reality, if they haven't spent any time with God or don't know God, but I was able to be with God for 15 minutes today and enjoy it and know, hey, He's going to feed me to make more music the way He wants me to make music. It's just more satisfying.
no, that's a really yeah, I really appreciate that. That's a really good point.
There's, man, I'm forgetting who said this. My brain's full of so many things and I forget to put the labels and names of people behind it. But sometimes we strive or hope to be like someone that is really good at their instrument or really good at their craft or well known or you name it. But we forget that typically what it took for them to get there, they had to build up a lot of fundamentals. Like they had a fundamental support group that they could consistently rely on, and we don't see it. And so then when we try and reach XYZ, we're completely missing out on the fact that we were never meant to leave the fundamentals behind. And so all of that to say, I take it long game. It's like, hey, if people are going to know me, I accept the fact it might be 40 years old, right? But there's nothing wrong with that.
No, there's nothing wrong. I mean, you're still alive, you're still breathing. So that's, yeah, you could still play music then. So yeah, and what you were saying actually reminded me. Have you heard of Francesca Battistelli?
I have, yeah.
So she has an Instagram and I follow her, and she was asking, or she posted something on her story saying like, ask me whatever you want. So I'm like, well, I'll ask you something. So I asked her, what advice would you give to somebody who, air quote, feels called to write music? And she actually did respond, and she said that her best advice would be to work on your skills now. Exactly what you were saying. Build your fundamentals. Build, like for me, it would be guitar and vocals. For you, your production and writing ability, so that when the doors are opened, you can walk through them versus kind of focusing. And I guess that kind of ties back in a little bit with the whole Instagram soapbox of, and actually, I think it was in another one of your podcasts, you said something about somebody spent like thousands and thousands of dollars on advertising, and they realized that it didn't really matter because the quality of the material that they were providing just wasn't there. So it doesn't really matter how much I might spend on Instagram if I'm not developing those fundamentals, so that if a door opens, you can walk through it. I thought that was really good advice from a fairly well-known person. So
yeah, because it's easy to lose sight of the fact if a door opens, and I'm just going to restate essentially what you said, but in a different frame. If a door opens, are my legs strong enough to keep walking up 20 flights of stairs?
Right.
Are you aware of film theory or game theory on YouTube?
No.
Okay, crash course. There's a guy named Matt Pat. He built 4 YouTube channels, all connected, ran it for 12 years. Now he's leaving the channel. That's like very short version. Him and his wife were on a podcast with 2 other YouTubers. And so these 4 people were talking about what it's like to have been a YouTuber for the past 12 years. And they were talking about the amount of work it takes to before you even blow up. Just the years and years and years. And the way one of the guys worded it was, you spend 10 years trying to run a race, and at the end of 10 years, your ticket gets stamped as your entry ticket to only then just start the race. Because it took that long to actually be known, be heard. And so it's like, to restate what we're saying, are my guitar skills good enough that I can collaborate with such a variety of people? Are my singing abilities good enough that I can show up and be with people and have a great time and glorify God in that way?
You have a long way to go.
Yeah.
Like
yeah.
your dad put in 10,000 hours or something. I've got probably 9,575 more to go. So long way to go.
We have 1 minute left. Do you just want me to finish in prayer?
Sounds good. I don't know how the time went by so fast.
Yeah, I know. Here, let's pray really quick. Lord God, thank you for this conversation. Teach us to pray. Teach us to be examples of prayer in our communities, families, and church. Father, I pray that wherever we go in music, I pray that your name would be honored and glorified and reflected well. Lord, thank you for Olivia. I pray you bless her marriage and her journey, and that I as well would just pursue you with our whole hearts. God, show us requests and ways to include you in all that we say and do. We love you. We pray this in your son's name. Amen.
Yeah,
Thank you so much.
absolutely. Thank you. I was honored to be part of your podcast.
Oh man, slowly but surely. It's good times. Hey, well, we'll talk later at some point in life.
Sounds good. And good luck with everything.
Yeah. You too, Olivia. I'll see you.